shackles of the Dominion. The Zirith Dominion was more than an empire. It was a machine of conquest, grinding across 1,000 star systems like an endless tide of steel and fire. Worlds were not merely conquered. They were broken, bent, and reforged into cogs that served the will of the overlords. When Earth fell, humanity's cradle was reduced to ash. Its cities cracked and burning, its oceans poisoned, its skies torn open by orbital bombardments. Survivors were hunted like vermin, captured and scattered across Dominion territory. Families were torn apart. Children grew up in chains, never knowing the world their ancestors called home. On the mining world of Druska 9, the Zirith kept thousands of human laborers buried in its endless labyrinth of tunnels. The world's surface was a wasteland of black storms and toxic ash, unfit for life. Beneath it, humans toiled under the lash of overseers, breaking rock and hauling off the Dominion shipyards. The Zirith did not see humans as soldiers, or even as people. They were units. Fragile, short-lived, expendable. The Dominion's records listed them as little more than human stock, categorized between livestock and labor drones. And yet, despite decades of captivity, something inside humanity endured. A spark. Mara Kalen was one such spark. Born in the mines, she had never seen a blue sky or felt rain on her skin. To her, light was a glow of plasma torches, air was the dust-choked staleness of tunnels, and freedom was nothing more than a whispered word. Yet her grandfather had spoken of Earth, of rolling oceans, of forests that whispered with life, of cities that reached for the stars not in conquest but in hope. Those memories, though second-hand, burned within Mara like a forbidden flame. She was 23 when her chance came. The Dominion or Holograthus had arrived late, its massive frame groaning as it docked above the mines. The ship was ancient by Zirith standards, but their arrogance had kept it in service. It was during a routine loading cycle that its engine core faltered, plasma conduits failing and systems sparking. A failure like this would have crippled production for days, and overseers did not forgive delays. Mara, an engineer's apprentice, was ordered to repair it. Failure meant death. Escorted by guards, she entered the alien Hola. Its corridors reeked of oil and scorched circuits. The technology was unfamiliar, its architecture a blend of elegant curves and brutal function, designed for Zirith hands and minds. Yet Mara's eyes, trained by desperation and sharpened by a hunger for understanding, began to see patterns. The Zirith were brilliant conquerors, but complacency had made them careless. Their systems were laid with redundancies, but redundancies that clashed, creating inefficiencies. Their protocols were rigid, leaving gaps for anyone bold enough to exploit them. As she traced the conduits, repairing what she had been ordered to fix, she saw more. Weaknesses, flaws, a thought piercer like lightning. They are not invincible. They can bleed. Her hands trembled as she worked, but she concealed it well. Overseers loomed behind her, their whip weapons crackling with energy, their reptilian eyes full of disdain. To them, she was no threat, only a tool. And tools did not rebel. But in that moment, as sparks from a severed wire lit her face, Mara whispered words her grandfather had once spoken. We were not born to serve. We were born to fight. The overseer barked at her to work faster, but Mara no longer heard. The machine before her was no longer just a Hola. It was a door to something greater than chains. In the darkness of Druska 9, a rebellion was born, not with armies, not with fleets, but with knowledge. And knowledge was the one weapon the Zirith had never thought to strip away. The spark of rebellion. The uprising did not begin with banners or speeches. It began with whispers in the dark. On Druska 9, whispers were dangerous things. The Zirith overseers had ears everywhere. Informants, surveillance drones, and sensors that monitored even the heartbeats of slaves. But fear could only silence so much. And Mara Kalen's words, quiet as they were, carried weight in the tunnels. She spoke when the overseers were far, her voice low but steady. They think we are nothing, she told the miners one evening, as dust clung to their sweat-soaked skin. They see only tools. But tools can break, and tools can cut. Some shook their heads, too beaten to believe. Others only listened, eyes hollow yet hungry. It was Darren Holt, a former soldier of Earth's Defense Forces, who finally stepped forward. He had been a young recruit when Earth fell, captured before he ever saw real combat. Decades in the mines had hardened his body, but not broken his will. "If you're serious," he growled, "you'll need more than words." Mara smiled faintly. "Then help me turn words into fire, turning tools into weapons." It began in secret. Plasma cutters, once meant for slicing rock, were modified into crude rifles. Their energy output was unstable, dangerous even to those who fired them, but they could kill. Mining mechs, tower machines built for hauling ore, were quietly altered when the overseers weren't watching. Reinforced arms became crushing weapons. Drill heads were converted into spinning blades. Every tool stolen, every modification made, was a risk. One night, a miner named Joran was caught smuggling a power cell. The overseers dragged him into the open square of the labor camp. Before the gathered slaves, they lashed him with energy whips until his flesh smoked. "This is what happens to thieves," one Zira snarled, his fang maw curling into a cruel smile. Mara forced herself to watch, not to harden her heart, but to etch the moment into her soul. Every strike, every scream became fuel. When Joran collapsed, broken and still, she whispered to those beside her, "Remember this. We will make them pay for every lash." The first strike, the day of rebellion, came without ceremony. The Zirit patrol entered the tunnels to collect the ore quota. 6 overseers clad in black armor, their shock lances humming with cruel energy. Behind them hovered drones, recording everything, transmitting fear to the Dominion's records. But this time, the miners did not lower their heads. As the overseers barked orders, Mara gave the signal. A single word carried on a breath. "Now!" The tunnels erupted in chaos. A mining mech lunged forward, its claw arm crushing one overseer against a rock. Plasma cutters ignited, beams slicing through alien flesh. The slaves, once cowed and trembling, roared with fury as they fell upon their captors. Tools became weapons, stones became bludgeons. The Zirith fought back viciously, their lances crackling, their claws rending flesh. 2 miners fell before they could strike. A third was cut down as he tried to shield his child. But rage carried the humans beyond fear. Darren wrestled a lance from a Zirith soldier, driving it through the alien's chest. Mara herself fired a plasma cutter, its unstable beam tearing through a drone before searing into the overseer behind it. For the first time in her life, she saw a Zirith bleed and fall. When the last overseer lay dead, silence filled the tunnels. The miners stood trembling, bloodied, their makeshift weapons glowing. For a moment, no one moved. Then Mara lifted her plasma cutter high. "It has begun," she whispered. Seizing the hauler, they knew the Dominion would send reinforcements. There was only one chance. Escape. The ore hauler Grathis, still docked above the mines, became their target. Mara had studied its systems for weeks, memorizing its flaws. Now those flaws were salvation. Under cover of night, the miners stormed the surface compound. Sirens wailed, lights blazed, and Zirith guards rushed to respond. But the humans fought with desperation only the enslaved could know. Plasma cutters burned through gates. Mining mechs smashed through walls. Mara led a team into the docking bay. The Grathis loomed before them, a massive beast of metal and engines. Zirith pilots tried to hold them back, but Darren cut them down with stolen lances. Mara sprinted to control console, her fingers flying across alien glyphs she had painstakingly learned. Systems flickered, hesitated, then bent to her command. The hauler roared to life. As it tore free from the docks, Zirith patrol craft swarmed to intercept. Mara's hands danced over controls, rerouting power, overloading weapons not meant for combat. The Grathis' mining lasers flared like cannons, slicing patrol ships apart. Another was caught in the hauler's engines, vanishing in fire. When the ship finally broke through Droska 9's storm-choked skies, the humans stood at the viewports, staring into the stars. Many wept. For some, it was the first time they had seen the void beyond their prison. Mara stood among them, her heart pounding. They had escaped. But this was only the beginning. The signal. In the quiet of Grathis' control deck, Mara broadcast a message. A simple one, smuggled across Dominion frequencies in fragments. Humans fight back. The chains are breaking. Rise. Across other worlds, Other camps, the word spread. Some dismissed them as rumor. Others dared to hope. And in the shadowed halls of Dominion Command, Zereth officers snarled in disbelief. Slaves had risen. Slaves had stolen a ship. Slaves had killed their masters. It was unthinkable, impossible, and yet it had begun. Fire across the stars. The rebellion turned into war. Humans, once scattered and powerless, became wolves among the stars. They learned to fight dirty, hacking Zereth navigation systems, luring fleets into suns, striking convoys in asteroid belts. At the Battle of Velcara Prime, 50 human ships faced 300 Zereth cruisers. The Zereth expected slaughter. Instead, Mara's fleet manipulated the asteroid field, turning it into a minefield of death. When the smoke cleared, Velcara burned, and humanity had won the impossible. The galaxy took notice. Other enslaved species rose up, inspired by human defiance. The Zereth tried to crush them all, but their empire bled from 1,000 cuts. Humanity had become more than rebels. They had become the nightmare of tyrants. The throne world burns. The war ended where it began, on the Zereth throne world. Once believed impregnable, its skies now blaze with fire. Human warships, stolen, rebuilt, reforged, faced Zereth dreadnoughts. This time, the outcome was not in doubt. Mara herself led the final charge, her banner torn but unbroken. Human drop pods rained onto the capital. Slaves from 100 worlds joined them, turning the Zereth's streets into a battlefield. In the throne chamber, Mara faced the Zereth overlord. His voice dripped with scorn. "You were slaves. Nothing more." She planted the human banner on his shattered dais, eyes burning. "We were slaves," she said. "Now we are conquerors." The galaxy would never forget that moment, the day humanity rose from chains to carve its place among the stars.